To anyone who has ever felt invisible, who has walked through days wondering if they still matter. If anyone would notice their absence, this story is for you. It is about a woman who had forgotten her own worth, and a wounded creature who reminded her. It is about the kind of love that arrives uninvited, in the coldest hours, when we least expect it. Some say angels come on wings, but sometimes they come on 4 legs, shivering in the snow, asking nothing but to be seen. 2 in the morning, snow falling sideways, thick and mean. Evelyn Harper stood barefoot at the edge of her property, garden shears clutched in hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The cold bit through Walter's old coat, the one she'd finally put on tonight, 18 months after burying him. Pipe tobacco and Old Spice, the smell nearly buckled her knees, but she kept standing because of what lay before her, a German shepherd. Female. Tied to the oak tree with a rope that had been there so long the flesh had tried to grow around it. Swollen, infected, wrong in ways that made Evelyn's stomach turn. The dog's belly was round, pregnant, full of life. The rest of her was dying. Ticks, hundreds of them, clustered at the ears, the throat, the soft, vulnerable skin of the belly, black specks against matted fur. Feeding on whatever blood remained. Evelyn had seen suffering before. You don't live 72 years without it. But this was something else. This was deliberate. Someone had done this. Someone had tied this animal to a tree and walked away. The flashlight beam trembled in her grip. The dog should have growled, should have snapped. Evelyn would have, in her position, after everything this creature had clearly endured, trust should have been impossible. But the dog didn't growl. She lifted her head. Just barely. The effort cost her something. Evelyn could see it in the way her body shuddered. And then she did something that stopped Evelyn's heart. She pressed her nose dry, cracked, cold against Evelyn's bare ankle. Not a plea, not a demand, not even hope. Really, just acknowledgement. You came. That's more than most. Evelyn's breath caught. The snow swirled around them both, erasing the world beyond this small circle of light. The wind howled through the bare branches overhead. But here, in this moment, everything else fell away. She should go back inside, call someone in the morning, let the professionals handle it. She was 72 years old, for heaven's sake. Bad knees, worse back. No business kneeling in the snow at 2 in the morning for a dog she'd never seen before. But Walter's voice rose up from somewhere deep. Evie. You hear something hurting? You go help. That's just what we do. 47 years of marriage. She could still hear him like he was standing right beside her. Evelyn looked at the dog, at the rope cutting into swollen flesh, at the ticks feeding, at the belly full of puppies who might never take their first breath if she walked away. The dog's eyes held hers. Dark, patient, waiting. Not for rescue. The dog had clearly given up on that, just waiting to see what kind of person Evelyn Harper really was. And in that moment, Evelyn realized she didn't know anymore. 18 months of grief had hollowed her out, left her going through motions she barely remembered, eating toast for dinner, sleeping too much, talking to no one, waiting for something she couldn't name, maybe waiting to die. But this dog, this broken, pregnant, dying dog wasn't waiting. She was still here, still breathing, still pressing her nose against a stranger's ankle in the middle of a blizzard, still choosing connection over surrender. Evelyn knelt in the snow. Her knees screamed. She ignored them. Okay, she whispered. Her voice cracked on the word. Okay, sweetheart. I see you. The dog's tail moved, once, barely visible. But it moved. Evelyn raised the garden shears. Her hands were shaking so badly she nearly dropped them twice. The rope was embedded deep, she'd have to cut around the wound, careful not to nick the angry flesh that had tried so hard to heal around this cruelty. She began to cut. The first strand snapped, then the second. The dog didn't flinch, didn't whimper, just watched Evelyn with those dark, patient eyes. I trust you. I don't know why, but I do. Third strand, fourth. The rope fell away. And Evelyn Harper, who hadn't felt needed by anyone in 18 months, who had started to believe her daughter was right, that she was just something to manage, a problem to solve, felt something shift in her chest. Not break, not shatter, open. The dog tried to stand, couldn't. Too weak, too far gone. 65 pounds of pregnant, dying animal, 100 yards to the house. Evelyn was 72 years old. She lifted the dog anyway. Her spine howled. Her arms burned. The snow stung her face and her bare feet had gone numb 5 minutes ago. But she walked. One step, then another, then another. Don't stop. Don't you dare stop. The porch light flickered through the storm like a beacon, like a promise. She made it to the door, through it, inside. Laid the dog on the old blankets by the fireplace, built up the fire with hands that wouldn't stop trembling, sat down beside her, breathing hard, heart pounding, wondering what in the world she had just done. The dog's eyes found hers and held. She knew that look, had seen it in the mirror often enough these past months. The look of someone who had been waiting alone for too long. Outside. The storm raged on. Inside. Two hearts beat together in the firelight. One had been waiting to die. The other had been trying not to. Neither would be the same after tonight. If this story found you tonight, I'd love to know where you're watching from. As my grandmother used to say, a burden shared is a burden halved, and knowing we're not alone makes all the difference. 6 hours earlier, Evelyn had eaten toast standing at the kitchen counter. Sitting felt like too much commitment. The table had 2 chairs, hers and Walter's. She hadn't touched hers since the funeral. His was worse. She couldn't even look at it without her chest going tight, without her breath catching somewhere it shouldn't. The toast was dry. She'd forgotten the butter, didn't bother going back for it. The radio played low on the windowsill, an old Zenith that Walter had fixed a dozen times over the years. Patsy Cline sang about falling to pieces. Evelyn wasn't really listening, but the sound filled the silence. That was enough. The kitchen clock ticked. Loud. Steady. The only other heartbeat in the house. She remembered when this room smelled like something. Coffee percolating at dawn. Bacon on Saturday mornings. The sweet pipe tobacco that drifted in when Walter came through the back door, stomping snow off his boots, calling out, "Evie, you wouldn't believe what that old tractor did now." Now it smelled like nothing, just old wood and still air. The phone rang at exactly 7 o'clock. Karen, same time every Friday. Evelyn could set the clock by it. She picked up on the third ring. "How are you, Mom?" "Fine, honey. Did you look at those brochures?" The brochures. Sunny meadows, golden horizons, places with pretty names and long hallways that smelled like disinfectant and waiting. "I will. You said that last week. Then I'll say it again next week." Silence. Evelyn could picture Karen pinching the bridge of her nose, the way she always did when Evelyn wasn't cooperating. "Love you, Mom." "Love you too." Click. Evelyn set the phone down, stared at it. When did talking to my own daughter start feeling like a chore? The weather report crackled through the radio. Heavy snow overnight, 6 to 8 inches. Stay indoors if possible. She checked the windows, locked the back door. Her hand brushed Walter's coat on the hook, the wool one, worn soft at the elbows. 18 months, and she still couldn't move it. Her fingers curled around the sleeve, just for a moment. Then she let go. Bed by 8. Nothing else to do. She lay in the dark, listening to the house settle around her. The familiar creaks and groans of 40 years. They used to be comforting, the sounds of home, of family, of life filling every room. Now they just reminded her she was the only one listening. The wind picked up outside. Snow began to tap against the window like fingertips asking to come in. Evelyn closed her eyes, and somewhere out there, in the cold and the dark, something was dying. She didn't know it yet, but in 4 hours, everything would change. Evelyn's eyes snapped open. The bedroom was dark. The digital clock on the nightstand read 11:47 p.m. Snow tapped against the window, steady and insistent. She lay still, listening. Something had woken her, not the wind, not the house settling. Something else. There. Again, a sound from outside. Low, broken, rising, then, cutting off abruptly, Evelyn pushed herself up on one elbow. Her heart thudded slow and heavy against her ribs. The sound came again, a whimper that climbed toward a howl but never got there. Like something that had learned crying didn't help but couldn't stop trying anyway. She swung her legs over the side of the bed. The floor was cold through her socks. She sat there for a moment, hands gripping the mattress edge, telling herself it was probably nothing. A coyote. A stray cat. Something that would be gone by morning. But the sound kept coming, weak, persistent, alive. Walter's voice rose up unbidden. "Evie, you hear something hurting. You go help." Her throat tightened. She stood, pulled on the heavy sweater draped over the chair, made her way downstairs in the dark, one hand trailing along the wall, feeling the familiar grooves in the old wallpaper. The mudroom smelled like dust and rubber boots that hadn't been worn in months. Evelyn's fingers found the flashlight on the shelf, the heavy metal one Walter kept charged for emergencies. She tested it. The beam flickered, then held steady. His coat hung on the hook by the door. 18 months. She hadn't touched it in 18 months. Her hand closed around the wool. She pulled it off the hook and shrugged into it. The sleeves hung past her wrists. The shoulders drooped, but the smell piped tobacco. Old Spice. Something underneath that was just him wrapped around her like arms she'd never feel again. She blinked hard. Once. Twice. Then she opened the door. The cold hit her like a slap. Snow drove sideways, stinging her cheeks, catching in her eyelashes. Visibility maybe 20 feet. The world beyond reduced to a wall of white. The sound came again, closer now, from the direction of the old oak tree at the property's edge. Evelyn stepped off the porch. The snow swallowed her boots to the ankle, soaking through immediately. She should have put on proper shoes, should have grabbed gloves, should have done a lot of things. She kept walking. Past the garden Walter used to tend tomatoes and peppers in summer. Dormant earth now buried under white. Past the shed where his tools still hung on their pegs, waiting for hands that would never return. The flashlight beam carved a tunnel through the storm. Snow swirling in the light like confetti at a parade nobody wanted. The oak tree materialized out of the darkness, massive, ancient. Its bare branches clawed at the sky like fingers reaching for something they'd never catch. And beneath it, something moved. Evelyn stopped, raised the flashlight. The beam found fur first, matted, dark with wet. Then the shape resolved a dog, large, German shepherd. Maybe. Female, tied to the tree. Evelyn's breath caught. The rope around the dog's neck wasn't just tight, it was embedded. The flesh had swollen around it, angry and weeping, trying to heal over the intrusion. Someone had tied this animal here and left her so long her body had started growing around the cruelty. The dog's belly bulged, pregnant, far along, and the ticks, Lord have mercy. The ticks, they clustered everywhere behind the ears, along the throat, across the soft skin of the distended belly. Hundreds of them, maybe more. Black specks against fur that should have been golden, feeding on blood this animal couldn't afford to lose. Evelyn's stomach lurched. She tasted bile at the back of her throat. The dog's eyes were open, watching her. No growl, no bared teeth, just watching. Evelyn took a step closer, then another. The snow crunched under her boots, loud in the muffled silence of the storm. Her hands trembled cold. Fear, something else she couldn't put a name to. She crouched down, knees protesting with a sound like dry twigs snapping, and extended her hand, slowly, carefully. The dog didn't snap, didn't flinch. Instead, she lifted her head, the effort visible, costing her something dear, and pressed her nose against Evelyn's ankle, cold, dry, cracked, and so gentle that Evelyn's eyes burned. This dog wasn't begging, wasn't pleading. She had clearly given up on rescue a long time ago. She was just acknowledging. You came. That's something. That's more than I expected. Evelyn looked at the rope, at the infected wound, at the ticks feeding and the belly full of puppies. She looked at the dog's eyes, dark and patient and waiting. Not waiting for rescue, waiting to see what Evelyn would do. Evelyn stood. Her joints screamed. She ignored them. "I'll be right back," she said. Her voice cracked on the words. "Don't you go anywhere, sweetheart." She turned and pushed through the snow toward the house. Faster now. The cold burned her lungs with every breath. The flashlight beam bounced wildly, casting shadows that leaped and twisted. The mudroom door, the shelf, garden shears rusted at the hinge, but the blades still sharp. Walter had always kept them sharp. She grabbed them and ran back out into the storm. The dog was still there, still watching. Evelyn knelt beside her. The snow soaked through her nightgown immediately, cold spreading across her knees like water through paper. But she didn't care. "Okay, sweetheart." Her voice was steadier now. "Let's get you free." She examined the rope. It was buried deep. She'd have to cut around the wound. Careful not to nick the inflamed flesh. The shears shook in her grip. First cut, the rope frayed. The dog didn't move. Second cut, more fibers snapped. Still no movement, no whimper, just those dark eyes watching, trusting in a way that made no sense after everything she'd clearly been through. Third cut, fourth, the rope fell away. The dog tried to stand. Her legs buckled immediately. She collapsed back into the snow, panting, too weak to support her own weight. Evelyn looked at her. 65 pounds. At least probably more before the starvation set in. 100 yards to the house. She was 72 years old with knees that ached when it rained and a back that hadn't been right since 1987. She should call someone. Wait for help. But the dog was shivering now. Hard. Her breath came in shallow gasps, visible in the cold air, each one shorter than the last. The puppies in her belly shifted visibly beneath the skin. If Evelyn went for help, this dog would be dead before it arrived. She made her choice. Evelyn bent down, slid her arms beneath the dog's body, one under the chest, one under the hindquarters, and lifted. Her spine howled. Her shoulders burned. The weight was impossible dead weight, the heaviest kind, muscle and bone and unborn life all pressing down at once. She took a step. The snow grabbed at her boots, tried to pull her down. Another step. Her knees threatened to buckle. The dog's head rested against her shoulder. Warm breath on her neck. Faint but steady. Still alive. Still breathing. Still fighting. Don't stop. Don't you dare stop. 10 steps. 20. The porch light flickered through the storm, impossibly far away. Evelyn's arms shook. Her back spasmed. Sweat broke out across her forehead despite the cold, trickling down her temples, mixing with the melting snow on her cheeks. 30 steps. 40. The garden passed on her left, nothing but mounds of white, the shed on her right, dark and silent. The world narrowed to the next footfall, the next breath, the weight in her arms that she refused to put down. 50 steps. 60. Her lungs burned. Her heart pounded in her ears, drowning out the wind. The porch materialized out of the white 3 stairs. She climbed them one at a time, each one an act of will. The door, the handle. Her fingers, numb and clumsy, fumbled with the latch. It opened. She staggered inside, kicked the door shut behind her with her heel, lowered the dog onto the old blankets by the fireplace, her arms trembling so badly she nearly dropped her the last few inches. The fire had burned down to embers. Evelyn added kindling with shaking hands, newspaper first, then thin strips of birch bark, then a small log. Flames licked upward, casting orange light across the walls, throwing shadows that danced. She sat down heavily beside the dog, breathing hard, heart hammering, sweat cooling on her skin. The dog lay still, eyes open, watching her. Evelyn reached out. Her hand settled on the dog's side, feeling the rise and fall of labored breath, the flutter of movement beneath puppies, still alive, still waiting for their chance. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay. We made it." The wind howled outside. The fire crackled. The storm raged on. But here, in this circle of warmth, 2 hearts beat together. Evelyn looked at the wound around the dog's neck, the angry flesh, the infection spreading beneath the surface, red lines snaking outward like roots seeking water, the ticks still feeding. She couldn't call the vet. The roads would be impassable until morning at the earliest. The phone lines might work, but help couldn't reach her, not tonight. She was on her own. Evelyn looked at her hands. They were still shaking. Then she looked at the dog, at the trust in those dark eyes that had no business being there, and she pushed herself up to find the tweezers. It was going to be a long night. What she didn't know yet, what she wouldn't discover until the ticks were gone and dawn was breaking and the full light of morning revealed what the darkness had hidden, were the other wounds hiding beneath that matted fur. The scars that would tell her exactly what kind of monster had done this. The tweezers were in the bathroom cabinet, behind a bottle of aspirin that had expired 2 years ago and a tube of arthritis cream Walter used to rub on his knees every night before bed. Evelyn grabbed them both, added a bowl from the kitchen, filled it with warm water from the tap, clean rags from the linen closet, the soft cotton ones she'd been saving for company that never came, a bottle of hydrogen peroxide she hoped wasn't too old to work. She carried everything back to the fireplace and set it down beside the dog. The dog hadn't moved. Her eyes tracked Evelyn's every movement, but her body lay still against the blankets, chest rising and falling in shallow, labored breaths. The fire popped and crackled, sending sparks up the chimney, filling the room with the smell of burning oak. "Okay, sweetheart?" Evelyn settled onto the floor, her knees protesting with a sound like gravel under tires. "This is going to take a while, but I need you to stay still for me. Can you do that?" The dog's tail moved, once, barely visible against the blanket. Evelyn dipped a rag in the warm water and began to clean around the neck wound. The fur was matted with dried blood and something yellowish infection, seeping from beneath the swollen flesh. The smell hit her nostrils, sour and wrong, like meat left too long in summer heat. Her stomach clenched. She worked slowly, carefully. The dog didn't flinch when the area was clean enough to see. Evelyn's breath caught. The rope had cut nearly to the muscle in places. The edges of the wound were ragged, the flesh swollen and hot to the touch. This wasn't days old. This was weeks, maybe longer. Someone had tied this dog and left her. Just left her. Evelyn's hands shook as she applied the peroxide. The liquid foamed white against the angry red flesh, bubbling and hissing. The dog whimpered the first real sound she'd made since Evelyn brought her inside, but didn't pull away. "I know, sweetheart. I know it stings. I'm sorry." She moved on to the ticks. The first one was embedded behind the dog's left ear, swollen fat with blood. Evelyn gripped it with the tweezers, as close to the skin as she could get, and pulled, slow, steady. The tick released with a soft pop, its body bloated and dark. Evelyn dropped it into the bowl of water and watched it sink. One down? She didn't want to count how many were left. The clock on the mantel read 12:47 a.m. when she started. The fire crackled and popped, throwing heat against her back. Outside, the wind moaned around the corners of the house, rattling the windows in their frames. By 1:30 a.m., she had removed 23 ticks. Her fingers cramped around the tweezers. Her eyes burned from squinting in the firelight, but she kept going. The dog watched her through it all. Those dark eyes never closed, never looked away. Every few minutes, her tail would move that same small, barely there wag, as if to say, "I'm still here. Keep going. I trust you." "You're a tough one, aren't you?" Evelyn murmured, extracting another tick from the soft skin beneath the dog's jaw. "Been through the ringer, and you're still fighting." The dog's ears twitched at the sound of her voice. "My husband used to say I was stubborn as a mule. 47 years he said that." She smiled, though no one was there to see it. "Reckon that makes two of us." Pop, another tick in the bowl. By 2:30 a.m., she had removed 51. The bowl was dark with them now, a graveyard of parasites floating in cloudy water. The fire crackled. Outside, the wind had died down some, but the snow kept falling, piling up against the windows, sealing them inside. By 3:30 a.m., Evelyn had reached the dog's belly. She worked even more carefully here, mindful of the puppies shifting beneath the distended skin. The ticks were thickest in this area, clustered in the warm folds where the legs met the body, feeding on blood that should have been nourishing unborn life. Her jaw tightened, she kept working, and then she found the first scar. It was on the dog's back left leg, hidden beneath the matted fur, a raised line of tissue, long, healed, running from the hip nearly to the knee. Evelyn's hands stilled. She parted the fur more carefully, found another scar, and another, crisscrossing patterns that spoke of repeated injury, repeated healing, repeated injury again. These weren't accidents. The placement was too deliberate, the pattern too consistent. Someone had kicked this dog, hard, over and over. Evelyn's throat tightened. She moved to the other leg, more scars, the same pattern. Then she checked the flank and found the burns, small, round, evenly spaced, the size of a cigarette tip. Evelyn sat back. Her hands were shaking again, but not from exhaustion this time. "What did they do to you?" The words came out hoarse, barely above a whisper. "What kind of person does this to an animal?" The dog lifted her head. The effort was visible muscles straining, neck trembling with the cost of it, but she managed. She stretched forward and pressed her nose against Evelyn's knee, that same gesture, that same impossible gentleness. "It's okay. I'm still here. You're still here." "That's enough." Evelyn's eyes burned. She blinked hard. Once. Twice. "You should hate people," she said. "After everything they did to you, you should hate all of us." The dog's tail wagged, stronger this time. Evelyn laughed, or maybe sobbed. Hard to tell which. She went back to work. By 5 o'clock a.m., she had removed 87 ticks. Her back screamed from hunching over. Her fingers had gone past cramping into a dull, constant ache. By 5:30 a.m., the last tick was in the bowl. She'd lost count somewhere past 100. Her eyes felt like sandpaper. Her whole body trembled with exhaustion. But it was done. She cleaned the neck wound one more time, applied the last of the peroxide, and sat back against the couch. The fire had burned low again, needing another log, but she couldn't move. Not yet. The dog lay still, but her breathing was easier now, steadier. The firelight played across her fur, catching hints of gold beneath the grime and the blood. She was going to need food, water, probably antibiotics that Evelyn didn't have. But she was alive. Still alive. The gray light of dawn began to seep through the windows. The storm had passed. Outside, the world lay buried under fresh snow, clean and white and silent as a church. Evelyn pushed herself up, her knees popping like bubble wrap. She made her way to the kitchen and heated some broth, just chicken stock from a can. Nothing fancy. Poured it into a shallow bowl and carried it back to the fireplace. "Here." She set the bowl in front of the dog's nose. "It's not much, but it's warm." The dog sniffed, hesitated, then her tongue emerged, pink and tentative, and touched the broth. She drank, slowly at first, then faster, lapping at the liquid with growing urgency, like someone who had forgotten what it felt like to be cared for. Evelyn watched, something loosening in her chest. When the bowl was empty, the dog looked up at her. Then, with visible effort, she shifted her body across the blankets and rested her head on Evelyn's lap. The weight of it, warm and solid and trusting, pressed against her thighs. Evelyn sat perfectly still. 18 months. 18 months since anyone had touched her with intention, since anyone had sought her out, leaned against her, wanted her presence, since anyone had made her feel like she mattered. The tears came before she could stop them, silent, streaming down her cheeks and dripping onto the dog's fur. She wasn't crying for Walter, not this time. She was crying for this broken creature who had chosen to trust again. Despite everything, despite the rope and the ticks and the scars and the burns, she was crying because she understood something now, something she hadn't had words for until this moment. Being needed wasn't the same as being a burden. Choosing to love something even when it was hard, even when it might end in more loss, wasn't weakness. It was the bravest thing a person could do. "Okay," Evelyn whispered, her hand settling on the dog's side, feeling each breath, counting each heartbeat. "Okay. We're going to figure this out. Together." The dog sighed, a long, slow exhale, and slept. Evelyn sat there as the sun rose, hand resting on the dog's ribs, watching the light creep across the floor. The house was quiet except for the soft crackle of the dying fire and the gentle rhythm of the dog's breathing. At 8 o'clock a.m., she reached for the phone. Dr. James Callahan answered on the second ring. His voice was rough with sleep, but he listened without interrupting as Evelyn described the situation the dog, the condition, the pregnancy, the wound she'd found beneath the matted fur. Long silence on the other end. "Someone dumped her." His voice was tired, angry, but not at her. "Farm dog. Probably. Got pregnant. Became a problem. Seen it before. Can you come? Road should be clear enough in a few hours. I'll be there by early afternoon." "Thank you. James?" A pause. Then, "Mrs. Harper, my grandmother used to talk about you. Eleanor. She said you were good people." Evelyn's throat tightened. Eleanor Callahan, her friend for 30 years, bridge partner on Tuesday nights, pewmate at First Baptist every Sunday, died last spring, alone in her house, 3 days before anyone noticed. Eleanor was too generous. "No, ma'am. She wasn't." Another pause. "I'll see you this afternoon." He hung up. Evelyn set the phone down, looked at the dog sleeping in her lap. "Help's coming. Sweetheart, just hold on a little longer." The dog's ears twitched, but she didn't wake. Outside, the sun climbed higher, setting the snow ablaze with light. The house creaked and settled around them, warm and quiet. The fire burned low, needing another log. Evelyn didn't move. For the first time in 18 months, she wasn't waiting for anything. She was exactly where she needed to be. The clock read 8:47 a.m. When the dog stirred, her eyes opened. Focused on something across the room, her body went rigid. A low growl built in her throat, the first aggressive sound Evelyn had heard from her. Evelyn followed her gaze to the window. A truck was pulling into the driveway. Old Ford. Rust around the wheel wells, farm plates, and a man was getting out. Evelyn didn't recognize the truck, but the dog clearly did. The truck sat in the driveway, engine idling, exhaust curling white against the cold morning air. Evelyn's hand pressed flat against the dog's side. She could feel the animal's heartbeat rapid now, pounding against her ribs like something caged and desperate. The growl continued, low, constant, a sound that came from somewhere deep, somewhere ancient. The man hadn't moved from beside his truck. He stood there, scanning the property, the house, the barn, the shed, taking inventory. His breath fogged in the cold, dissipating slowly. Then his gaze settled on the front window. Evelyn pulled back from the glass. Her heart hammered against her chest. "Easy, girl." She kept her voice steady, calm. "Easy, now." But the dog wasn't listening. Her body had gone rigid, every muscle locked, her eyes fixed on that window with an intensity that made Evelyn's skin prickle. This wasn't fear. This was recognition. The man started walking toward the house. His boots crunched through the snow-heavy steps, unhurried, confident. He moved like someone who expected doors to open for him, like someone who'd never heard the word no. Evelyn stood. Her knees popped. She ignored them. The knock came. 3 sharp raps against the wooden door, hard enough to rattle the frame. She looked at the dog. The dog looked back. That growl still rumbling in her throat, but softer now. Waiting. "Don't let him in." The message was clear as church bells on Sunday morning. Evelyn crossed to the door. Her hand hesitated on the knob. The brass was cold beneath her palm. Another knock. Harder this time. Impatient. She opened it. The man on her porch was mid-50s, maybe older, weathered face, deep lines carved around his mouth and eyes like dry creek beds. The kind of tan that came from years of outdoor work, leathered and permanent. He wore a canvas jacket stained at the cuffs and work boots caked with dried mud. His eyes were pale blue, flat, like pond ice in January, the kind that looked solid but would drop you into freezing water if you stepped wrong. "Help you." Evelyn kept her body blocking the doorway, kept her voice even. "Ma'am?" He touched the brim of his cap, a gesture that might have seemed polite if his eyes had matched it. "Name's Frank Mitchell. I'm looking for a dog. German Shepherd. She wandered off my property a few weeks back. Heard she might have come this way." His voice was pleasant enough, neighborly, even, the voice of a man who'd learned how to make himself sound reasonable, but those eyes never warmed. "Haven't seen any dog? That right?" He leaned slightly, trying to see past her into the house. Evelyn shifted to block his view. "Because I noticed tracks leading onto your property, fresh ones, and that storm last night would have covered anything older. Lots of animals pass through here. Deer, coyotes, foxes sometimes. This ain't a coyote, ma'am. This is a purebred German Shepherd. Worth a fair bit of money." He paused. "She's pregnant, too. Due any day now." Evelyn's grip tightened on the doorframe. The wood bit into her palm. "Like I said, haven't seen her." Frank Mitchell smiled. It didn't reach his eyes, didn't even try. "Mind if I take a look around just to put my mind at ease?" "I do mind. Actually, it's been a long night and I'm not in the mood for company." The smile faded. Something harder took its place. "Mrs. Harper." "Mrs. Harper." He said it slowly, rolling the name around in his mouth like he was deciding what to do with it. "That dog is my property. I've got papers on her, registration, the whole 9 yards. If she's on your land, that makes this a legal matter. Then call the sheriff." Silence stretched between them. The wind picked up, throwing snow dust across the porch, swirling around their feet. Frank's jaw tightened. A muscle twitched near his temple. "I'm trying to be neighborly here." "So am I. By telling you I haven't seen your dog." From inside the house, a sound, a bark, weak but unmistakable. Frank's eyes lit up, a hunter who'd spotted movement in the brush. "Sounds like you might be mistaken, ma'am." He stepped forward. Evelyn didn't move. For a long moment they stood there, an old woman in her dead husband's coat and a man with ice in his eyes, with nothing but a door frame between them. "Step aside. Mrs. Harper." "No." The word came out flat, final, a word she hadn't said to anyone in a long time. Frank's expression shifted. The neighborly pretense dropped away like a mask coming off at the end of a Halloween party. "That dog is mine. I can prove it. And if you're hiding her, that's theft. Plain and simple. What I'm hiding is a pregnant animal that was tied to a tree and left to die, with a rope so tight her flesh grew around it, covered in ticks, starving." Frank didn't flinch. "She was always getting loose. Must have gotten tangled somewhere. And the burn marks, the scars on her legs from being kicked." Something flickered in those pale eyes, gone before Evelyn could name it, swallowed up by the ice. "I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do." The standoff held. Evelyn's heart pounded in her ears. Her hands were trembling anger, fear, both tangled together until she couldn't tell which was which. She was 72 years old. He was bigger, younger, stronger. But she wasn't moving. "You're making a mistake, Mrs. Harper." Frank's voice had gone quiet, cold, the voice of a man who was used to getting his way and didn't know what to do when he didn't. "That dog is worthless now. Pregnant with pups I can't sell. Eating food I can't afford. She's a liability, not an asset. I don't know why you'd want her. Maybe because she's alive. Maybe because she deserves better than what you gave her." Frank laughed, short, harsh. a sound like gravel scraping metal. You don't know anything about what I gave her. 5 years I fed that dog. 5 years I kept a roof over her head. She had one job guard the farm and she couldn't even do that right. Got herself knocked up by some stray. So you tied her to a tree in the woods. I turned her loose. What happened after that isn't my problem. You left her to die. I made a practical decision. He leaned closer, close enough that Evelyn could smell him cigarette smoke. Motor oil. Something sour underneath, like milk gone bad. That's what you do when you're running a farm alone. When the bank's breathing down your neck and your wife walked out and your kids don't call, you make hard choices. His voice had changed. Still cold. But something else now. Something that almost sounded like self-pity, like a man who wanted sympathy for his own cruelty. I'm not the villain here. Mrs. Harper, I'm just a man trying to survive. Evelyn looked at him. Really looked. The lines on his face weren't just from sun and wind. They were from sleepless nights and bitter mornings and too much whiskey after supper. The stains on his jacket weren't carelessness. They were the marks of a man doing everything himself because there was no one left to help. She understood hardship. She understood loss. She'd buried a husband and learned to eat dinner alone and listen to her children talk about her like she was a problem to be solved. But she didn't understand this. You tortured an animal because times were hard. I disciplined a working dog. With cigarettes. Silence. Frank's jaw worked. His hands clenched at his sides, knuckles going white. I'm done talking. Either you hand over that dog or I'm calling the sheriff. Call him. The words surprised her even as she said them, but she didn't take them back. Frank stared at her, calculating, the ice in his eyes cracking just slightly, revealing something uncertain underneath. You're protecting a dog that isn't yours, a dog that can't give you anything, can't work, can't guard, can barely stand from what I saw through that window. He shook his head. What's the point? The point is, she's alive, and she trusts me, and I'm not going to betray that. Trust, he said the word like it tasted bad in his mouth. She's a dog. Mrs. Harper, she doesn't know what trust is. Maybe not. But I do. Another long moment passed between them. The wind died down, the snow settled, somewhere in the distance. A crow called out, harsh and lonely. Then Frank stepped back, his hands unclenched. Fine. Keep her for now. But this isn't over. I'll be back with papers, and then we'll see who's right. He turned and walked back to his truck. The engine revved. The tires spun briefly in the snow, then caught. The truck pulled away. Evelyn watched it disappear around the bend where the county road met her driveway. Then she closed the door, locked it, leaned her forehead against the cold wood. Her legs were shaking. Her whole body was shaking. She made her way back to the fireplace. The dog was sitting up now, watching her with those dark eyes. The growl had stopped, in its place, something that looked almost like relief. He's gone, Evelyn said. For now. The dog's tail wagged, once. Evelyn sank down beside her. Her hand found the dog's head, fingers scratching behind the ears she'd spent hours clearing of ticks. We need to name you, can't keep calling you girl forever. The dog leaned into her touch. Evelyn thought about the burns, the scars, the rope that had cut so deep. Bella, she said finally, it means beautiful, because you are, you know, despite everything they did to you, you still are. Bella's tail wagged again, stronger. The phone rang. Evelyn reached for it, expecting James Callahan, but the voice on the other end was her daughter's. Mom, Ruth just called me. She said you're keeping some stray dog and that a man came to your house this morning looking for it. Evelyn closed her eyes, Ruth Peterson, half a mile down the road, eyes like a hawk and a mouth that never stopped moving. News traveled fast in small towns. Always had, always would. It's not. She said he looked angry. Mom, she said she saw him from her window standing on your porch, and you wouldn't let him in. What's going on? Are you in some kind of trouble? I'm fine. You don't sound fine. You sound exhausted. I've been up all night. With the dog, Karen's voice rose. Mom, you can barely take care of yourself. What are you thinking? The words hit harder than Frank Mitchell's ever could. Barely take care of yourself. Evelyn's grip tightened on the phone. Karen, I need you to listen to me. I am listening. And what I'm hearing is that you're making decisions that don't make sense. That man could be dangerous. That dog could be sick. You're 72 years old, living alone in the middle of nowhere, and now you're picking fights with strangers over a stray. She's not a stray. She was abandoned, tortured, left to die. There's a difference. What difference does it make? The point is that I found something that needs me. Evelyn's voice cracked. She didn't try to hide it. For the first time since your father died, I have a reason to get up in the morning. A reason to keep going. Can you understand what that means? Silence on the line. Mom, don't. Don't tell me I can barely take care of myself. Don't tell me I'm too old. Don't treat me like I'm already in the grave waiting for someone to shovel the dirt. I'm still here. I'm still capable. I'm still your mother. She was crying now. She didn't care. And this dog, this broken, pregnant, dying dog that someone left tied to a tree, she sees that she trusts me. She chose me. When's the last time anyone chose me? Karen, when's the last time anyone looked at me and saw something worth needing? The silence stretched. When Karen spoke again, her voice was different, smaller, the voice of the little girl who used to crawl into Evelyn's lap during thunderstorms. Mom, I didn't know you felt like that. You didn't ask. Another pause. I'm sorry. Evelyn wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Bella had pressed against her leg, warm and solid. I don't need you to be sorry, I need you to understand. I'm trying. Then try harder. Come visit. See her for yourself. See me for yourself. It's been 18 months. Karen, 18 months since you've been here. Silence. Then, I'll talk to Michael about Christmas. Maybe, I'll try. Mom, I promise. The line went quiet. Evelyn set the phone down, looked at Bella. Well, that was something. Bella's tail wagged. The clock read 10:15 a.m. Dr. Callahan would be here in a few hours. Evelyn pushed herself up. Her body ached everywhere, her back, her knees, her shoulders from carrying 65 pounds through a blizzard. But she didn't feel tired anymore. She felt alive. Come on, sweetheart, let's get you cleaned up before the vet arrives. She helped Bella to her feet. The dog was steadier now, still weak, but able to stand, able to take a few tentative steps. Together, they made their way to the bathroom. Evelyn filled the tub with warm water, helped Bella climb in, supporting her weight when her legs threatened to buckle. The water turned brown almost immediately. Weeks of grime and blood lifting away, swirling down toward the drain. Evelyn worked slowly, carefully, using a cup to pour clean water over Bella's back, her sides, her swollen belly. Bella stood still, patient, trusting. When the water finally ran clear, Evelyn drained the tub and helped Bella out. Wrapped her in old towels, the soft ones from the back of the closet, dried her fur section by section, and saw, for the first time, what lay beneath the dirt, golden fur, thick and healthy where the ticks hadn't been. A noble face, intelligent eyes, the sturdy build of a working dog, even after weeks of starvation. "Look at you," Evelyn whispered. "Look how beautiful you are." Bella's tail wagged. They made their way back to the fireplace. Evelyn spread fresh blankets, clean ones this time, from the hall closet that still smelled faintly of cedar, and Bella settled onto them with a sigh. Evelyn sat beside her, stroked her fur, watched the fire dance. "He'll be back," she said quietly. "That man, he won't give up that easily." Bella's ears twitched. "But we'll be ready. Dr. Callahan will have everything documented. The wounds, the scars, the burns. If Frank Mitchell wants to make this a legal matter, we'll have evidence of exactly what he did." Bella's eyes closed. Her breathing deepened. Evelyn kept stroking. The fire crackled. The house settled. Outside, the sun climbed higher, melting the snow on the porch rails, sending rivulets of water dripping past the windows like tears. At 1:47 p.m., a truck pulled into the driveway. Evelyn's heart seized, but only for a moment. This truck was different. Newer, blue. A sign on the door read, "Callahan Veterinary Services." She rose, her knees popping, and went to answer the door. Dr. James Callahan stood on the porch, younger than she'd pictured from his voice. Late 30s, maybe. Tired eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of tired that came from too many late nights and early mornings. A medical bag in one hand. "Mrs. Harper, come in, James. She's by the fire." He followed her inside, stopped when he saw Bella. Something crossed his face. Surprise, maybe. Or recognition of something he'd seen too many times before. "You cleaned her up?" Couldn't stand to look at her dirty anymore. And he knelt beside Bella. His hands moved with practiced ease, checking her eyes, her gums, her heartbeat, examining the neck wound with gentle fingers, probing carefully around her belly. Bella watched him. Wary, but not growling. Not anymore. "The infection's bad," he said finally, "but we caught it before it went systemic. I'll give her a shot of antibiotics, leave you some pills to give her twice a day, and the puppies, 8.5 weeks. Give or take, she could go into labor any time now." He paused. "Given her condition, there might be complications. I'll leave my number. Call me the second anything changes, day or night." "I will." He prepared the injection. Bella flinched when the needle went in, but didn't pull away. James sat back on his heels, looked at the wounds, at the scars, at the burns. "Mrs. Harper, I need to ask, do you know how she got like this? A man came by this morning. Frank Mitchell. Said she was his dog. Said she wandered off." James's expression darkened, a shadow passing over his face. "Mitchell, I know that farm. Bought a horse from him a few years back." He shook his head slowly. "Should have known." "Known what?" "The horse had old injuries, too. Healed fractures, scar tissue. I asked him about it. He said she was spirited, needed a firm hand." His jaw tightened. "I didn't push. Should have." Evelyn's stomach turned. "He wants her back. Says he'll come with papers." James was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into his bag and pulled out a camera. "Mind if I document what I found, the wounds, the scars, all of it?" "Please." He photographed everything. The neck wound from multiple angles, the scars on her legs, the burn marks on her flank, close-ups that made Evelyn's heart ache just looking at them. When he finished, he put the camera away. "If he comes back with the sheriff, you call me. I'll testify to exactly what I saw here. Papers or not, no judge in this county is going to return an animal to someone who did this." "Thank you, James." He nodded, started packing his bag, then stopped. "Mrs. Harper, my grandmother talked about you. A lot. Actually, Eleanor. She said you were the kindest person in Cedar Falls. Said you brought her soup when she had the flu and drove her to church every Sunday after her eyes got bad." Evelyn's throat tightened. Eleanor Callahan, bridge partner, friend, 20 years of Tuesday nights and Sunday mornings, dead 6 months now. And Evelyn still reached for the phone sometimes to call her before remembering. Eleanor was a good woman. She was. James's voice was soft. She would have done the same thing, you know. Found a dog dying in the snow, brought her inside, stayed up all night picking ticks. She was that kind of person. So are you, James, coming out here in this weather, making house calls when everyone else has gone to clinics and appointments. It's what she would have wanted. He finished packing. Stood. "I'll check in tomorrow. Call me if anything changes before then. And Mrs. Harper, yes. That man Mitchell, he's not the type to let things go. Be careful." "I will." He left. Evelyn locked the door behind him, returned to the fireplace. Bella was awake now, watching her. "Well," Evelyn said, settling down beside her die. "Now we wait." Bella's head dropped onto Evelyn's lap. That same, trusting wait. Outside, the sun began its slow descent toward the horizon. The shadows lengthened across the snow. The temperature dropped as the light faded. At 4:30 p.m., Bella shifted. Evelyn looked down. The dog's breathing had changed. Faster. Shallower. Her belly rippled. Evelyn's heart stopped. "Oh, sweetheart, not yet. The vet just left." But Bella wasn't listening. Her body was following a rhythm older than memory, older than thought, the same rhythm dogs had followed since the first wolf laid down beside the first fire. The puppies were coming, and Evelyn was on her own. Evelyn grabbed the phone and dialed James Callahan's number. Her fingers fumbled on the buttons, hitting wrong numbers twice before getting it right. 1 ring, 2, Callahan Veterinary. "James, it's Evelyn Harper. She's starting. The contractions, they just began." A pause. She could hear him breathing on the other end, could hear papers shuffling in the background. "How far apart?" Evelyn looked at Bella. The dog's sides heaved. Another ripple crossed her belly, muscles tightening visibly beneath the skin. "I don't know. A few minutes. Maybe 3 or 4. "Okay. I'm on my way. But Mrs. Harper, it might take me an hour to get there. The roads up by Miller's Creek are still bad. Snow drifted across in a couple places. An hour? Maybe less if I'm lucky. Depends on how bad the drifts are." His voice was calm, steady, the voice of someone who'd talked people through this before. "Listen to me. Dogs have been doing this for thousands of years. Your job is to stay calm, keep her comfortable, and let her body do the work. Don't interfere unless you have to. What if something goes wrong? Then you call me. I'll talk you through it." Another pause. "You can do this. Mrs. Harper, I'll be there as soon as I can." He hung up. Evelyn set the phone down. Her hands were shaking. Bella whimpered, her head lifted, eyes finding Evelyn's across the room. Dark eyes, trusting eyes. Eyes that said, "I don't know what's happening, but you're here. That's enough." "Okay, sweetheart." Evelyn knelt beside her, ignoring the protest from her knees. "Okay, we're going to do this together." She gathered supplies. Clean towels from the linen closet, all of them. Every last one. A bowl of warm water from the kitchen tap. The flashlight, just in case the power went out. Scissors, sterilized with rubbing alcohol from the medicine cabinet. Dental floss for tying off cords if necessary. Her mother had taught her this. Decades ago. On the farm in Wisconsin where Evelyn grew up, she'd helped birth calves and lambs and once even a foal that came backwards in the middle of a thunderstorm while her father was away at the feed store. She could do this. She had to. Bella's breathing quickened. her body tensed, muscles rigid beneath the skin, a contraction strong, visible, rolling across her abdomen like a wave moving through water. Evelyn placed her hand on Bella's side, felt the power of it, the ancient machinery of birth grinding into motion. "That's it, girl. Let it happen. Don't fight it." The contraction passed. Bella panted. Her tongue hung from her mouth, pink and wet. Steam rose from her breath in the cooling room. Evelyn added another log to the fire. The flames leaped up, casting dancing shadows across the walls. 5 minutes, then another contraction, 4 minutes, another, 3. Evelyn checked the clock on the mantel. 5:15 p.m. James wouldn't be here until after 6 at the earliest. Maybe later if the roads were as bad as he said. Bella shifted position, circled once on the blankets, her legs unsteady, then lay back down. Her eyes were glazed now, focused inward on the work her body was doing. The contractions came faster, 2 minutes apart, then 1. Bella strained. Her back legs pushed against the blankets, claws catching in the fabric. A low moan escaped her throat. Not pain exactly, but effort, concentration, the sound of a body doing something difficult and necessary. "You're doing great," Evelyn murmured. "You're doing so great, sweetheart." At 5:47 p.m., the first puppy arrived. Evelyn saw it emerge, a dark shape wrapped in membrane, sliding onto the blankets in a rush of fluid. Small, wet, motionless. Her heart stopped. Bella twisted around, instinct taking over despite her exhaustion. Her teeth found the membrane, tore it away with careful precision. Her tongue worked furiously, licking the puppy's face, its chest, its tiny curled body, nothing. The puppy didn't move, didn't breathe. Evelyn reached forward. "Let me try, girl." Bella hesitated, her body tense, then she pulled back. Evelyn lifted the puppy so small, no bigger than her hand, so impossibly small, and cleared its nose and mouth with her finger. Mucus, fluid. She wiped it away with a clean cloth. Still nothing. She rubbed the puppy's back with a towel. Firm strokes, like she'd seen her mother do with lambs that wouldn't breathe. Round and round, stimulating the tiny lungs. "Come on," she whispered. "Come on, little one." The puppy lay limp in her hands, silent, still. "Please." She rubbed harder, blew gently on its face, a puff of warm air across the tiny nostrils, tapped its chest with 2 fingers. Gentle, but insistent. Nothing. Bella was watching, those dark eyes fixed on Evelyn's hands, waiting, trusting. Evelyn kept rubbing, her vision blurred. Her hands shook. "Please, little one, please, your mama needs you." And then a cough, a gasp, a thin, reedy wail that was the most beautiful sound Evelyn had ever heard. Breathing. The puppy wriggled in her hands, alive, fighting, lungs filling with air for the first time. Evelyn laughed. The sound burst out of her, wet and raw. There you go, sweetheart." She placed the puppy against Bella's belly. It squirmed, blind and helpless. Searching for warmth, Bella's tongue found it again, cleaning, comforting. Her tail thumped once against the blankets. 1 down. The second puppy came at 6:12 p.m. This one emerged already wriggling, membrane breaking on its own. Bella handled it herself, cleaning, nudging, guiding it toward her belly with her nose. The third arrived at 6:28 p.m. Same process, same result, 3 healthy puppies, lined up against their mother's side, tiny mouths searching for milk. Evelyn sat back. Her shirt was soaked with sweat despite the cooling room. Her hands trembled with exhaustion, and something else, something that felt like wonder. "You're doing it," she said. "You're really doing it." "Girl." Bella's tail thumped once against the blankets. Then the fourth contraction came. And something was wrong. Evelyn saw it immediately. The puppy was presenting wrong. She could see the tail, the back legs, but the body wasn't moving forward. Bella strained, pushed. Her whole body trembled with the effort. The puppy didn't budge. "Breach," Bella whimpered. Her eyes found Evelyn's, wide and frightened for the first time since this all began. "Hold on, sweetheart, hold on." Evelyn grabbed the phone, dialed. Her fingers slipped on the buttons. "James, the fourth one is stuck. Breach. Coming backwards. How much can you see?" "Back legs, a tail, but it's not moving. She's been pushing for 2 minutes and nothing's happening." "Okay, listen carefully. You're going to need to help guide it out. Gently. On the next contraction." "I can't." "You can. You have to." His voice was firm. "Wash your hands. Use the warm water. When she pushes, you guide. Don't pull, just support. Let her body do the work." Evelyn set the phone down, plunged her hands into the bowl of water. Warm, clean. Bella's body tensed, another contraction building. Her legs pushed against the blankets, her breath coming in sharp gasps. "Okay, girl, okay. We're going to do this together." She positioned herself behind Bella, saw the puppy's hindquarters, still stuck in the birth canal. The contraction hit. Bella pushed, her whole body strained with the effort, muscles standing out beneath her fur. Evelyn's fingers found the puppy. Slick, warm, impossibly small. She cupped them around the tiny body, supporting, guiding, not pulling, just following the movement of Bella's body. "That's it. Keep pushing. Girl." The puppy moved, an inch, 2. Another contraction, another push. Evelyn guided, gently, patiently. The shoulders emerged, slipping past the narrowest point, then the head, and then, in a rush of fluid, the puppy slid free, motionless. Evelyn's heart seized. She grabbed a clean towel, cleared the airway, rubbed the back. Firm strokes, steady rhythm. Come on, little one." The puppy lay limp in her hands, silent. Its fur was slicked flat against its body, making it look even smaller than it was. "Please." She rubbed harder, blew on its face, tapped its chest. Nothing. Bella was watching, those dark eyes seeing everything, waiting. Evelyn kept rubbing. Her vision blurred with tears she didn't bother to wipe away. "Please, sweetheart, please, don't give up." And then a cough, a gasp, a thin, warbling cry that filled the quiet room. Evelyn sobbed. She didn't try to hide it. The puppy wriggled in her hands, alive, breathing, fighting. She placed it against Bella's belly, watched it find its place among its siblings. 4. The fifth puppy came at 7:15 p.m., no complications, healthy, breathing on its own within seconds. The sixth at 7:43 p.m., same. By the time James Callahan's headlights swept across the front window, Evelyn was sitting on the floor beside Bella, surrounded by towels and bowls and 6 squirming puppies. She didn't have the energy to get up. The door opened. James stepped inside, medical bag in hand, snow dusting the shoulders of his jacket. He stopped when he saw the scene. "Well," his voice was quiet, impressed. "Looks like you didn't need me after all." Evelyn laughed, or cried. She honestly couldn't tell anymore. "The fourth one was Breach. I had to help." James knelt beside her, examined each puppy in turn with practiced hands. checked Bella's vitals, her breathing, her temperature. She's stable. All 6 are healthy. He sat back on his heels, looking at the scene before him. Mrs. Harper, do you know how rare this is, a dog in her condition, giving birth without major complications? You did something remarkable tonight. I didn't do anything. She did all the work. That's not true, and you know it. He was quiet for a moment, looking at Bella, at the puppies, at Evelyn. My grandmother, she died alone. You know, in her house, 3 days before anyone found her. His voice was rough. I should have visited more. Should have called more. Should have been there. Evelyn's throat tightened. Eleanor was proud of you. James. She told me so. Every Tuesday night at bridge. She'd talk about her grandson, the veterinarian. How hard you worked. How much you cared about the animals. She talked about you, too. Said you were the kind of person who'd give the shirt off your back to a stranger. Said you drove her to church every Sunday for 3 years after her eyes went bad. He paused. She was right. He packed his bag. Stood. I'll come by tomorrow to check on them, make sure everyone's doing okay. He hesitated at the door. Mrs. Harper? Yes. That man Mitchell. If he comes back, I'll call you. Do that. And in the meantime... He reached into his bag, pulled out a business card. This is the number for County Animal Control. If he shows up with the sheriff, you show them the photos I took. You tell them what you found, and you don't let him take that dog. Evelyn took the card. Her hands were still trembling, but steadier now. Thank you, James. He nodded and left. The house fell quiet. Evelyn sat beside Bella, watching the puppies nurse. 6 of them, small and blind and utterly dependent on the mother who had nearly died bringing them into the world. One of them was different from the others, smaller, paler fur, and a white patch over its left eye. Evelyn's breath caught. Captain, Walter's dog. The one who'd died 2 weeks before Walter himself. Like he'd known somehow and gone first to wait. He'd had the same marking, a white patch over his left eye. Evelyn had joked that it made him look like a pirate. This puppy had the same marking, exactly the same. She reached out, touched the soft fur with trembling fingers. The puppy squirmed, nuzzled against her hand. Hey, there, little one, she whispered. Where did you come from? Coincidence. Had to be. There was no other explanation. But still, Bella watched her. Those dark eyes knowing something Evelyn couldn't quite name. The fire crackled. The puppies nursed. Outside. The moon rose over the snow-covered fields, casting silver light through the windows, for the first time in 18 months. Evelyn didn't feel alone. But she also knew this wasn't over. Frank Mitchell would be back, with papers, with the sheriff, with the weight of the law behind him. And Evelyn would have to be ready. She looked at Bella, at the 6 puppies, at the little one with the white patch. Whatever happens, she said quietly, I'm not letting him take you. Any of you. Bella's tail thumped once against the blankets. A promise made. Now Evelyn had to figure out how to keep it. The phone rang. She reached for it, expecting Karen again, or maybe Ruth, calling to spread more gossip, but the voice on the other end was unfamiliar. Male? Official? Mrs. Harper, this is Deputy Wilson with the Cedar County Sheriff's Office. I understand you may have some property belonging to a Mr. Frank Mitchell. Evelyn's blood went cold. We'll be coming by tomorrow morning to sort this out. 9 a.m. sharp. I'd recommend having the animal available for inspection. He hung up before she could respond. Evelyn set the phone down. 9 a.m., less than 12 hours, and Frank Mitchell had the law on his side. Evelyn didn't sleep. She sat beside Bella through the night, watching the puppy's nurse, watching the fire burn down to embers, watching the darkness outside the windows slowly give way to gray. Her mind churned. Papers, registration, legal property. The words circled like buzzards over roadkill. She had nothing. No documentation, no proof of ownership. Just a dog she'd found tied to a tree and 6 puppies born on her living room floor. Frank Mitchell had papers. Frank Mitchell had the law. At 6 a.m., she made coffee, strong, black, bitter enough to strip paint. Her hands shook as she poured, sloshing liquid onto the counter. At 7 a.m., she called James Callahan. "The sheriff's coming at 9. Deputy Wilson." Mitchell filed a complaint. Silence on the other end. Then, "I'll be there. With the photographs. Everything I documented. Will it be enough?" A pause. Too long. The kind of pause that answered the question before any words came. "I don't know. Mrs. Harper is legally. If he can prove ownership." He tortured her, James. I know. But proving that in a way that matters to a judge that takes time. Investigations. Reports. And right now, all he has to do is show papers. Evelyn's grip tightened on the phone until her knuckles went white. "So, what do I do? You tell the truth. You show them the evidence. And you hope the deputy has a conscience." He hung up. Evelyn set the phone down, looked at Bella. The dog was awake, watching her with those dark, knowing eyes. The puppies squirmed against her belly, small sounds of contentment filling the quiet room. "I'm not going to let him take you," Evelyn said. "I promised." Bella's tail moved. Once. But promises, Evelyn knew, didn't always mean a thing against the weight of the law. Her father had taught her that. Promises were just words. Paper was power. At 8:30 a.m., a truck pulled into the driveway. Not the deputy. Frank Mitchell. He'd arrived early, on purpose, to catch her off guard, to stack the deck before the game even started. Evelyn watched from the window as he climbed out. Same canvas jacket, same mud-caked boots, same flat expression, like a pond frozen solid. But this time, there was something else. A folder tucked under his arm. Papers. He walked toward the house with the confidence of a man who knew he'd already won. Evelyn met him at the door. "Deputy Wilson isn't here yet." "I know," Frank smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Never did. Thought we might talk first. Just the two of us. Clear the air before things get official. We have nothing to talk about." "Sure we do." He held up the folder. "I've got registration papers going back 5 years, vaccination records, purchase receipt from the breeder in Duluth, everything legal, everything documented, everything that proves she's mine." Evelyn's stomach dropped. Heavy, cold, like swallowing a stone. "So, when the deputy gets here," Frank continued, "this is going to be real simple. I show him the papers, he confirms the dog matches the description, and I take her home, along with whatever pups she dropped. She's not going anywhere with you. That's not your call. Mrs. Harper," he stepped closer. "See, here's the thing. The law doesn't care about feelings. Doesn't care that you stayed up all night playing nursemaid. Doesn't care that you got attached. What it cares about is ownership. And I own that dog, black and white. Legal and binding. You abandoned her. I released her. There's a difference. One's a crime. One's just a choice I had every right to make. You tied her to a tree and left her to die." Frank's jaw tightened. A muscle twitched near his eye. "She was always getting loose. Must have gotten tangled somewhere. Happens all the time with dogs that don't mind their training. And the burn marks, the scars on her legs from being kicked. Something flickered in those pale eyes, and anger, shame. Something dark and coiled, then vanished behind the ice. Accidents happen on a farm. Dogs get into things, run where they shouldn't. That's just life. That's not life. That's cruelty. Frank laughed. Short, harsh, the sound of a man who'd stopped caring what anyone thought a long time ago. Cruelty. You want to talk about cruelty? He stepped onto the porch. Evelyn backed up instinctively, her hip catching the doorframe. I spent 30 years building that farm. 3 generations of Mitchells working that land. Sweat and blood and broken backs. And now the bank's taking it. My wife packed her bags and left last summer. My kids won't return my calls. I've got nothing left but debt and empty rooms and a dog that couldn't do the one job she was trained for. He was close now. Close enough that she could smell cigarette smoke and sour sweat and something else, the bitter tang of a man who'd pickled himself in whiskey and self-pity. That dog was supposed to earn her keep. Instead, she got herself pregnant and became another mouth I couldn't feed. So, yeah, I cut her loose. What would you have done? Mrs. Harper fed her with money you didn't have. Watched your last dollar go to dog food while the bank foreclosed. Evelyn's throat tightened. She wanted to respond, wanted to fire back, but the words wouldn't come. Because part of what he said was true. She didn't know what it was like to lose everything. She had the house, the pension, the savings Walter had squirreled away for 40 years. She'd never had to choose between feeding herself and feeding an animal. Never had to watch everything she'd built crumble to dust. What right did she have to judge Frank saw her hesitation? His smile widened. Predator-scenting weakness. That's what I thought. He pulled the folder from under his arm. Here's what's going to happen. The deputy is going to arrive. I'm going to show him these papers. He's going to confirm that the dog in your house matches the description German Shepherd. Female, approximately 5 years old. Distinctive coloring. He opened the folder, showed her the top page, a registration certificate with a photograph attached. The photograph was Bella. No question about it. Younger, healthier, but unmistakably her. And then, Frank continued, I'm going to take my dog and whatever pups she dropped, and you're never going to see any of them again. Evelyn's legs weakened. She reached for the doorframe to steady herself. The puppies, too. Property of the dam's owner, that's the law. Should have thought about that before you got attached. He turned and walked back to his truck, leaned against the hood, crossed his arms, waiting. Evelyn stood in the doorway, her whole body trembling. She'd lost. She knew it now with a cold certainty that settled into her bones. All her promises, all her determination, none of it mattered against a piece of paper with an official seal. The clock in the kitchen read 8:47 a.m., 13 minutes. She went back inside, closed the door, leaned her forehead against the cold wood. Bella was watching her, those dark eyes seeing everything, understanding everything. I'm sorry, Evelyn whispered. I tried. I really tried. Bella's tail didn't move. Evelyn sank to the floor beside her. Her hand found the dog's head, fingers tangling in the soft fur behind her ears. The puppies nursed, oblivious. The little one with the white patch squirmed and squeaked, pushing past its siblings to find a better spot. I failed you, Evelyn's voice cracked. I said I wouldn't let him take you. And I failed. The tears came then, silent, streaming down her cheeks and dripping onto the blankets. She thought about what Frank had said. Lonely old woman playing nursemaid, getting attached to something that wasn't hers. Was that what she was? A foolish old woman who'd gotten attached to something that was never hers to begin with. Karen's voice echoed in her memory. You can barely take care of yourself. Ruth's concerned looks, the brochures for assisted living piling up on the kitchen counter, the way people talked around her instead of to her. Like she was already gone and just hadn't gotten the memo. Maybe they were right. Maybe she was just taking up space, pretending to matter, clinging to a dog and a pile of puppies because she had nothing else. Nothing else. The words settled into her chest like stones dropped in still water. She looked at Bella, at the puppies, at the little one with Walter's marking. "I'm sorry," she said again. "I'm so sorry." A knock at the door. Evelyn didn't move. Another knock, louder. "Mrs. Harper? Deputy Wilson, I need to speak with you. Ma'am?" As she wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, pushed herself up from the floor, her knees popped, her back ached. She felt every one of her 72 years pressing down on her shoulders. She opened the door. Deputy Wilson was younger than she expected, early 30s, maybe. Clean-shaven, neat uniform, a notepad in his hand. His expression was professionally neutral, the face of a man who'd learned to hide his opinions behind procedure. Behind him. Frank Mitchell stood with his arms crossed, that same smug smile plastered across his face. "Ma'am," the deputy touched the brim of his hat, "I understand you have a dog here that may belong to Mr. Mitchell. I have a dog that I found tied to a tree, half dead, covered in ticks and starving. That may be, ma'am, but Mr. Mitchell has documentation proving ownership." He glanced at his notepad. "German Shepherd, female, approximately 5 years old. Answers to the name Sadie." Sadie. So that was what Frank had called her. A pretty name for a dog he'd treated like garbage. "Her name is Bella now," Frank snorted. "Doesn't matter what you call her. She's still mine." The deputy held up a hand. "Let's keep this civil. Folks, Mrs. Harper, do you have any documentation showing ownership of this animal?" "No, I found her Friday night, in a blizzard, tied to a tree on the edge of my property with a rope so tight her flesh had grown around it. And you brought her inside. She was dying. She was pregnant. What was I supposed to do, leave her there?" The deputy's expression flickered. Sympathy. Maybe. But it didn't change anything. "I understand this is difficult, ma'am, but without documentation and with Mr. Mitchell's papers in order—" He spread his hands. "The law's clear." Frank stepped forward. "Let's just get this done. I've got work to do. Mr. Mitchell, please." The deputy turned back to Evelyn. "Ma'am, I need to see the dog. Verify she matches the description in the registration." Evelyn's throat tightened. Every instinct screamed at her to refuse, to slam the door, to barricade herself inside and never come out. But what good would that do? They'd get a warrant, come back with more deputies, take Bella anyway, and probably charge Evelyn with obstruction on top of it. She stepped aside. The deputy entered first. Frank followed, his boots tracking mud across the floor Evelyn had mopped just yesterday. They found Bella by the fireplace. The puppies were still nursing. 6 small bodies pressed against their mother's belly, innocent of everything happening around them. Frank's eyes went to the puppies first, counting, calculating. 6 of them. Not bad. He crouched down, reached toward Bella. Bella growled, low, dangerous, a sound that started deep in her chest and vibrated through the room. Frank jerked his hand back. "Still got that attitude. I see." He stood, brushing off his knees. "Deputy, that's my dog. No question about it." The deputy examined Bella from a distance, comparing her to the photograph in Frank's folder. Markings match. Age appears correct. He made a note in his pad. "Mrs. Harper, I'm sorry, but—" "Wait," a voice from the doorway. James Callahan stepped inside, snow dusting his shoulders, a folder of his own clutched in his hand. "Before you make any decisions, Deputy, I think you should see this." He crossed to where the deputy stood and opened the folder. Photographs spilled across the coffee table. The neck wound, raw and infected. Flesh swollen around embedded rope. The scars on Bella's legs, crisscrossing patterns of repeated injury. The burn marks, small and round and evenly spaced. "I documented these injuries yesterday," James said, "consistent with prolonged restraint. Repeated blunt force trauma and cigarette burns. This dog didn't wander off and get tangled in something. Deputy, she was abused, systematically, over a period of years." Frank's face darkened. "That's nothing but lies. That vet's got it in for me. Everyone in this county's got it in for me." "I also have statements from 3 other farmers who've purchased animals from Mr. Mitchell over the years." James pulled more papers from the folder. "All of them reported similar injuries after the fact. Healed fractures, scar tissue, signs of systematic abuse that predated the sales." The deputy's expression changed. He looked at the photographs, at James, at Frank. "Mr. Mitchell, would you like to respond to these allegations?" Frank's jaw worked, his hands clenched at his sides, knuckles going white. Those are lies. Hearsay. Nothing that would hold up in any court. 3 separate farmers. Mr. Mitchell. 3 separate incidents. All with remarkably similar stories." Silence filled the room. Heavy. Charged. Frank's face twisted. The mask of neighborly concern fell away completely, leaving something ugly and raw underneath. "Fine. You want the truth." "Yeah, I disciplined that dog. She was worthless. Lazy. Wouldn't guard the property worth a darn. You try keeping a working dog in line when she won't work. See how gentle you stay?" He pointed at Evelyn. "And you think you're some kind of saint, taking in strays, playing the hero. You're just as pathetic as she is. 2 useless things holding on to each other because nobody else wants either of you." The words hung in the air like smoke. Evelyn felt them land, felt them burrow into her chest like ticks feeding on blood. Pathetic. Useless. Her face burned. Her eyes stung. Frank took a step toward her. "Your own kids don't visit. Your neighbors pity you. You've got nothing and nobody. And you're going to die alone in this house, just like that old woman down the road. What was her name? Eleanor something." He laughed. 3 days before anyone even noticed she was gone. "That's your future, Mrs. Harper. That's all you've got waiting for you." He'd stopped himself before, but not this time. The words hit like fists, each one precise, each one aimed at something soft and vulnerable. Evelyn's legs buckled. She sat down heavily on the arm of the couch. For a moment, just a moment, she believed every word. The deputy's voice cut through the fog. "That's enough. Mr. Mitchell." He stepped between Frank and Evelyn, his face hard now, the professional mask gone. "I think we're done here." Frank's eyes widened. "What? No, that's my dog. I have papers." "You also have documented evidence of animal cruelty across multiple incidents." The deputy's voice was cold, flat. "I'm going to recommend that the county attorney's office open a formal investigation. In the meantime, this dog stays right where she is. You can't do that. The law also covers animal abuse. Mr. Mitchell, neglect, torture, and right now, that's exactly what I'm looking at." He tucked his notepad away. "I'd strongly recommend you get yourself a lawyer." Frank stood there, breathing hard. His eyes moved from the deputy to James to Evelyn, and settled on Bella. The dog was watching him, those dark eyes holding his gaze without flinching, without fear. Something passed between them. History, pain, years of cruelty met with years of endurance, and something else. Defiance. Frank's hands unclenched. His shoulders dropped. Fine. The word came out flat. Dead. Defeated. Keep the worthless dog. Keep the whole litter. They're not worth the trouble anyway. He turned and walked toward the door. Stopped. Looked back at Evelyn. You think you've won something here you haven't. You've got a broken dog and a pile of puppies that nobody's going to want. Give it a month. You'll be just as alone as you were before. Lonelier. Maybe. When you realize none of this actually mattered. He walked out. The door slammed behind him. The truck engine roared to life. Tires spun on gravel, spraying mud against the porch. And then he was gone. Evelyn sat on the arm of the couch, surrounded by photographs of abuse and the echo of words that wouldn't stop ringing in her ears, useless, pathetic, going to die alone. 3 days before anyone noticed, her legs gave out completely. She slid off the couch arm and onto the floor, landing hard on her hip. The impact jarred through her bones. She didn't get up. She sat there on the cold floor, her back against the couch. Tears streaming down her face. Everything Frank had said was true. Her kids didn't visit. Her neighbors pitied her. She was 72 years old, living alone in a house full of ghosts, clinging to a dog because she had nothing else to cling to. Nothing else. The words kept echoing, over and over. Nothing and nobody. Bella shifted on the blankets, her head lifted, and then, slowly, painfully, she dragged herself across the floor until her body pressed against Evelyn's side, warm, solid, present. Evelyn wrapped her arms around the dog's neck, buried her face in soft fur. Sobbed like she hadn't sobbed since the day they lowered Walter into the ground. "I'm sorry," she whispered, though she didn't know who she was apologizing to anymore. "I'm so sorry." James Callahan stood in the doorway, watching. His eyes were soft with something that might have been pity or might have been understanding. "Mrs. Harper, please, go." Her voice was muffled against Bella's fur. "Please, I just need—" She couldn't finish the sentence. He nodded slowly, set the folder of photographs on the coffee table. "I'll check on you tomorrow." The door closed quietly behind him. The deputy's car started outside, pulled away, and then it was just Evelyn and Bella and 6 puppies and the weight of everything that had been said. The fire had burned down to ash. The room was getting cold. She should get up, add more wood, check on the puppies, do something useful. But she couldn't move. Frank's words kept playing on repeat, over and over, like a song she couldn't get out of her head. Going to die alone, just like Eleanor. 3 days before anyone noticed. Was that her future? Was that all she had to look forward to? Bella whimpered. Her nose nudged Evelyn's chin, wet and cold, and then slowly, deliberately, she licked the tears from Evelyn's cheeks. One side, then the other, methodical, patient, like she had all the time in the world. The gesture was so unexpected, so tender, that Evelyn laughed through her tears. "You're supposed to be the one who needs comforting," she said. "Not me." Bella's tail wagged, once, then again. Evelyn looked into those dark eyes, saw something there she hadn't expected, not pity, not gratitude, understanding. This dog knew what it felt like to be abandoned, to be told you were worthless, to have everything stripped away until there was nothing left but the stubborn will to keep breathing. And she was still here, still trusting, still choosing to love despite everything. Maybe that was something worth holding on to. Maybe being broken didn't mean being beyond repair. Evelyn wiped her eyes, took a shaky breath. "Okay," she said. Her voice was hoarse but steady. "Okay." She pushed herself up from the floor, Her hip throbbed where she'd landed on it. Her whole body ached. But she was standing. She added wood to the fire, watched the flames catch and grow, felt the warmth begin to spread through the room. The puppies stirred against Bella's belly. The little one with the white patch yawned, tiny pink tongue curling. Evelyn knelt beside them, touched each one gently. "We're going to be okay," she said. "All of us. I don't know how yet, but we're going to figure it out." The phone rang. Evelyn reached for it, expecting James, or maybe the deputy with more questions, but the voice on the other end was Karen's. "Mom, I just talked to Michael about Christmas." Evelyn's heart skipped. She held her breath. "We're coming. All of us, Michael and Jennifer, David and me, all the kids, we want to see you. Mom, and we want to meet this dog you've been telling us about." Evelyn's throat tightened until she could barely speak. "You don't have to—" "Yeah, Mom. We do." Karen's voice was different now, softer, younger, somehow. The voice of the little girl who used to crawl into Evelyn's lap during thunderstorms. "We should have come a long time ago. I'm sorry it took all of this to make us see it." The tears came again, but different this time. Lighter. "Thank you, sweetheart. See you in 2 weeks, Mom. And I love you. I love you too. Baby girl, I love you too." The line went quiet. Evelyn set the phone down, looked at Bella. "Well," she said, "looks like we're having company for Christmas." Bella's tail wagged. Outside, the sun was setting. The sky blazed orange and pink above the snow-covered fields, painting everything in shades of fire and hope. Evelyn sat beside Bella, surrounded by puppies, and watched the light fade. Frank Mitchell's words still echoed somewhere in the back of her mind, but they were quieter now, smaller, and getting fainter all the time. She looked at the little puppy with the white patch over its eye. It had squirmed away from its siblings and was now pressed against her knee. Tiny body warm through her jeans. "I think I'll call you Scout," she said softly, "because you found me when I was lost, even though I didn't know it." The puppy squeaked. Bella's tail thumped against the floor, and for the first time in 18 months, Evelyn felt something she'd almost forgotten existed. Hope, but even as the warmth spread through her chest, a small voice whispered in the back of her mind. Frank Mitchell had said this wasn't over, and men like him rarely accepted defeat quietly. 3 days passed. The puppies grew stronger, their eyes remained closed, but their movements became more purposeful, less random squirming, more deliberate searching for warmth and milk. Bella nursed them patiently, her own strength returning with each meal Evelyn prepared. The neck wound was healing. The infection had receded under the antibiotics James had left, leaving behind pink tissue that would eventually become a scar, a thin white line hidden under fur, a permanent record of what she'd survived. Evelyn fell into a rhythm. Wake at 6 when the first gray light crept through the windows. Check the puppies, count them, make sure all 6 were breathing. Feed Bella boiled chicken and rice now, mixed with the kibble James had brought. Clean the bedding, make coffee. Sit by the fire and watch the small bodies wriggle against their mother's belly. It was simple. It was quiet. It was enough. On the 4th day, the phone rang. "Mrs. Harper, this is Deputy Wilson." Evelyn's hand tightened on the receiver. "Deputy, I wanted to let you know the county attorney has decided not to pursue charges against Mr. Mitchell at this time." The words hit like cold water. What? The evidence Dr. Callahan provided was compelling, but ultimately circumstantial. The other farmers he mentioned declined to file formal complaints when we contacted them. without their testimony on record. He paused. I'm sorry, ma'am. There's nothing more we can do right now. So he just gets away with it. After everything he did. For now. But his ownership claim has been suspended pending further review. That means the dog stays with you while the county sorts things out. Small comfort, but comfort nonetheless. Thank you. Deputy. Ma'am. I'd recommend keeping your doors locked. Mr. Mitchell wasn't happy about how things went. Not happy at all. The line went dead. Evelyn set the phone down, looked at Bella. Looks like we're stuck with each other for a while longer, she said. Bella's tail wagged. That night, Evelyn couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house creak and settle around her. Every sound made her flinch. Every shadow seemed wrong. Mr. Mitchell wasn't happy about how things went. What did that mean exactly? Would he come back? Try something else. The law hadn't stopped him before he'd tortured an animal for years and walked away without consequence. At 2 a.m., she gave up on sleep, went downstairs, found Bella awake, watching the door with those alert, knowing eyes. You feel it too, don't you, girl? Bella's ears twitched toward the sound of Evelyn's voice. Evelyn sat beside her on the floor. The puppies slept in a pile, small chests rising and falling in unison. Scout was at the edge as always, one tiny paw resting against Evelyn's ankle. We'll be okay, she said, more to herself than to Bella. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out. She didn't entirely believe it, but she said it anyway. The next morning brought sunshine and a temperature warm enough to melt the icicles hanging from the porch rails. Evelyn took it as a sign. A good omen. Her mother would have called it. She bundled up in Walter's coat and went outside. First time in days that she'd ventured beyond the porch. The cold air bit at her cheeks, but it felt good. Clean. Real. The property spread out before her 12 acres of snow-covered fields. The red barn Walter had painted every spring for 40 years. The garden plot where his tomatoes used to grow. She walked to the oak tree at the property's edge. The rope was still there. Hanging from a low branch where she'd cut it, frayed ends, dark with something that might have been blood. She should take it down. Burn it. Erase the evidence of what had happened here. But she didn't. Instead, she stood there looking at it. Remembering. The sound of an engine broke the silence. Evelyn turned. A truck was coming up the driveway, moving slowly through the muddy ruts the melting snow had left behind. Not James Callahan's blue pickup. Not the deputy's cruiser. Frank Mitchell's old Ford. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She was 100 yards from the house, too far to run, too far to call for help. The truck stopped. Frank climbed out. He looked different, smaller somehow. His shoulders hunched forward, his face gray and stubbled like he hadn't slept in days. The swagger was gone. The ice in his eyes had melted into something murkier. He walked toward her. Slowly, his hands hung at his sides. Empty. Mrs. Harper. Evelyn stood her ground. Her legs trembled, but she locked her knees and stayed planted. Mr. Mitchell, I thought I made it clear you weren't welcome here. I know. He stopped 10 feet away, kept his distance. I'm not here to cause trouble. Then why are you here? He didn't answer right away. His eyes moved to the rope hanging from the oak tree. Stayed there. I did that, he said quietly. Tied her up, left her there, told myself she'd chew through it, find her way back to the farm. Or, he swallowed. His Adam's apple bobbed in his throat. Or she wouldn't. And either way, it wouldn't be my problem anymore. Evelyn said nothing. 3 weeks. Frank's voice cracked like ice breaking on a spring pond. I left her there for 3 weeks. Every morning I told myself I'd go back, check on her, but I didn't. Because I knew what I'd find, Serene, and I didn't want to see it. He turned to face her. His eyes were red-rimmed, wet. I'm not a good man. Mrs. Harper, I know that. I've done things I can't take back, things that keep me up at night, staring at the ceiling, wishing I could go back and do different. He paused. But I didn't always used to be like this. Evelyn watched him, waiting. My father raised me on that farm, taught me how to work the land, how to care for animals. He used to say a man's character shows in how he treats the things that depend on him. Frank laughed, bitter, hollow, a sound like dry leaves scraping across pavement. He'd be ashamed of me now, ashamed of what I've become. Then why did you do it? The question hung in the cold air between them. Frank was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. Because I was angry? At the bank for taking everything I'd worked for, at my wife for leaving when things got hard, at myself for failing. His hands clenched at his sides, then slowly released. And she was there, trusting me, depending on me, and I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand having one more thing that needed something from me when I had nothing left to give. He looked at the rope again. So I made her pay for it, for needing me, for being one more reminder that I couldn't take care of anything anymore. Evelyn's throat tightened. She thought about Walter, about the days after he died. When the silence in the house was so loud she couldn't breathe. When she'd wanted to rage at something. Anything. Just to feel like she still existed. She understood that anger, the way it could twist you, turn you into someone you didn't recognize in the mirror, but she hadn't let it consume her. Frank had, "Why are you telling me this?" Frank's face contorted. Pain and shame, and something that might have been the beginning of tears. Because I can't sleep anymore. Every time I close my eyes, I see her, tied to that tree, waiting for me to come back. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. And the puppies, 6 of them. You said, 6 puppies that almost died because I was too much of a coward to face what I'd done. He couldn't finish. His jaw worked, but no more words came out. Evelyn watched him. This broken man standing in her snow-covered yard, confessing sins to a woman he'd called worthless and pathetic just days before. What do you want? Mr. Mitchell? I don't know. The words came out ragged, raw. Forgiveness. Maybe, though I know I don't deserve it. You're right. You don't. He flinched, but he didn't argue. I'm not going to forgive you, Evelyn continued. What you did to that dog, I can't make that okay. I won't pretend I can. Some things don't get erased just because you're sorry about them. Frank nodded. His head dropped. But he looked up. Evelyn took a breath. The cold air burned her lungs. I think there's something broken in you. Something that happened long before you tied Bella to that tree, and I think you've been carrying it alone for a long time, letting it rot you from the inside out. Frank's eyes glistened. My father died 6 years ago. Heart attack. Just like your husband. They told me. I found him in the barn. Just lying there in the hay like he'd decided to take a nap. His voice shook. After that, everything started falling apart. The farm, my marriage, me. Did you talk to anyone, get help? A bitter laugh. Men like me don't get help. Mrs. Harper, we just keep going until we can't go anymore, until we break something so bad it can't be fixed. Evelyn looked at him, really looked, and saw, beneath the anger and the cruelty and the self-pity, something she recognized, loneliness, the same loneliness she'd been drowning in for 18 months. You need to talk to someone. Frank. a professional, a pastor, someone who can help you work through what you're carrying before it destroys you completely. And if I don't, then you'll keep hurting things, animals, people, yourself, until there's nothing left but the wreckage. Frank was quiet for a long moment. The wind picked up, sending snow dust swirling across the yard. The rope swung from the oak tree, creaking softly against the branch. "The farm's gone," he said finally. "Bank took it last week. Foreclosure notice came in the mail. I've got nothing now. No land, no animals, no family. What will you do? I don't know." He looked at her, really looked, for the first time since he'd arrived. "My sister lives in Wisconsin. She's been asking me to come stay with her. Get back on my feet. Start over somewhere nobody knows what I've done. Maybe you should, maybe—" Silence stretched between them. Frank turned, took a step toward his truck, stopped. "Mrs. Harper, yes? The dog Bella. You called her?" He swallowed hard. "She was a good dog, the best I ever had, actually. Loyal, smart, protective. She didn't deserve what I did to her. No, she didn't. I know I can't make it right, but—" He reached into his jacket, pulled out a folded paper. "These are her registration documents, the real ones, not copies. I want you to have them." He walked toward her, held out the paper. Evelyn hesitated, then took it. "Transfer of ownership form is on the back," Frank said. "Already signed and dated. She's yours now. Legally. No one can take her from you." Evelyn unfolded the paper, looked at it. The photograph of Bella, the official stamps and signatures, the breeder's information, and at the bottom, in shaky handwriting, "Transfer to Evelyn Harper." Signed. Frank Mitchell. "Why?" she asked. Frank's face twisted again. Pain and relief and something that might have been the first step toward redemption. "Because she's happy with you. I could see it through your window that first day, the way she looked at you, the way she leaned against you." He shook his head. "She never looked at me like that. Not once in 5 years. I thought it was because she was broken. Turns out I was the broken one all along." He turned and walked to his truck. "Mr. Mitchell." He paused, hand on the door. "Good luck. In Wisconsin." He nodded once, climbed into the truck, the engine rumbled to life, and then he was gone. Evelyn stood in the snow, holding the registration papers, watching the truck disappear down the road until it was nothing but a speck on the horizon. The wind blew cold against her face. The rope swung from the oak tree. She walked over to it, reached up with stiff fingers, untied it from the branch. The rope fell into her hands, rough, frayed, stained dark with things she didn't want to think about. She carried it back to the house, threw it in the fireplace, watched it catch and burn, the flames turning orange and then blue as they consumed the evidence of cruelty. Bella was waiting by the door, her tail wagging when she saw Evelyn. "It's over." "Girl," Evelyn said. "Really and truly over, this time." She knelt beside the dog, showed her the registration papers. "You're mine now, official, legal. Nobody can take you away." Bella licked her face. Evelyn laughed. The sound echoed through the quiet house, filling spaces that had been silent for too long. The puppies were awake, squirming in their nest by the fireplace. Scout had climbed over his siblings and was sitting at the edge of the blankets, wobbling on unsteady legs, nose pointed toward the sound of Evelyn's voice. "Look at you," she said. "Already trying to explore?" She picked him up, held him against her chest, felt his tiny heart beating against her palm. The fire crackled, the afternoon sun streamed through the windows, warm on her face. Outside, the snow was melting, revealing patches of brown earth beneath. Spring was coming, and with it, Evelyn realized, a whole new chapter. Karen and Michael would be here in 10 days. The house would be full again, children's laughter, family dinners, the beautiful chaos of life that she'd almost forgotten existed. She looked at Bella, at Scout, at the 5 other puppies who would soon need homes of their own. "We did it, girl," she said softly. "We actually did it." Bella's tail thumped against the floor. The phone rang. Evelyn set Scout down gently and reached for it. "Mrs. Harper, it's James Callahan. James, I was just thinking about calling you. Good things. I hope, She could hear the smile in his voice. "Listen, I wanted to let you know I've had 5 families contact me about the puppies. Good families, all of them. People I know. People who'll take care of them, right? Already. Word travels fast in small towns. Everyone's heard about what happened, about the dog you saved, about what you did." He paused. "You've become something of a local legend." "Mrs. Harper?" Evelyn laughed. "I'm no legend. I just did what anyone would have done." "No, ma'am. You did what very few people would have done, and that's worth something." She thought about Frank Mitchell, about the confession he'd made standing in her yard, about the papers he'd signed. "James, Frank Mitchell came by today." Silence on the line. "He gave me the registration documents, signed over ownership. He did," surprise colored his voice. "What made him change his mind?" Evelyn looked at Bella, at the scar forming on her neck, at the trust still shining in those dark eyes despite everything. "I think he finally saw what he'd done. Really saw it. And he couldn't live with himself anymore. That's unexpected. People can surprise you, James, even the ones you've given up on." Another pause. "My grandmother used to say something like that. Everybody's got a piece of good buried somewhere inside them. Sometimes it just takes the right circumstances to dig it out." Eleanor Callahan, bridge partner, friend, dead 6 months now. "She was a wise woman. Your grandmother." "She was." James's voice was soft, fond. "She would have liked you. Mrs. Harper liked you a lot. I liked her too. Miss her every Tuesday night when there's no one to play cards with." The conversation drifted into a comfortable silence. "I should let you go," James said finally. "Those puppies need their rest, and so do you. Thank you, James, for everything. The house calls, the photographs, showing up when it mattered. Anytime. Mrs. Harper, anytime at all." The line went quiet. Evelyn set the phone down, looked around her living room, the fire burning low, the puppies sleeping in a pile. Bella watching her with those dark, patient eyes. This was her life now. This was what she'd built from the ashes of grief and loneliness. And it was good. She sat down beside Bella, let her hand rest on the dog's head. "You know what, girl," she said quietly, "I think we're going to be just fine." Bella's tail wagged. Outside, the sun was beginning to set. The sky blazed orange and pink, painting the snow in shades of fire and gold. Evelyn watched it through the window, thought about Walter, about what he would say if he could see her now. She could almost hear his voice. "That's my Evie, stubborn as a mule and twice as strong." She smiled. The puppies stirred. Scout yawned, his tiny body stretching. And somewhere in the distance, through the bare trees and across the melting snow, a cardinal began to sing. The first birdsong she'd heard since winter began. Spring was definitely on its way. Christmas Eve arrived with a dusting of fresh snow and the sound of tires crunching up the driveway. Evelyn stood at the kitchen window, dish towel twisted between her hands, watching the cars approach, 2 of them. Karen's silver sedan first, moving slowly through the ruts, Michael's SUV close behind. Her hands trembled as she set the towel down on the counter. 18 months. 18 months since she'd seen her children in person. 18 months of phone calls that felt like chores and silences that stretched too long, and the growing sense that she'd become someone to manage rather than someone to love. The car doors opened. Karen emerged first. Her hair was shorter than Evelyn remembered, threaded with gray at the temples. When had that happened? When had her little girl started going gray? Then Michael, broader than his father had been, but with the same kind eyes, the same way of standing with his hands in his pockets, weight shifting from foot to foot, and behind them, grandchildren. Sophie, 7 years old with her mother's dark hair, already running toward the house, 2 teenagers Evelyn barely recognized. Hanging back by the cars, thumbs moving across phone screens. The spouses came last. Karen's husband David, carrying a casserole dish covered in foil. Michael's wife Jennifer, holding a wrapped package against her chest. The front door burst open before Evelyn could reach it. "Grandma!" Sophie launched herself across the threshold and into Evelyn's arms, small arms wrapped around her waist, squeezing tight enough to push the air from her lungs. Evelyn bent down, gathered the girl close, breathed in the smell of her strawberry shampoo and cold winter air, and something sweet, probably candy, snuck in the car. "Look at you," she whispered. "Look how big you've gotten." Sophie pulled back, her face serious. "Where's the dog? Mom said you have a dog now. And puppies. Can I see the puppies? Please." Evelyn laughed. The sound came easy, natural, surprising her with how right it felt. "They're inside, honey, by the fireplace, but you have to be gentle. Okay? They're still very small." Sophie nodded solemnly, the way only children can. Then she wriggled free and darted past Evelyn into the house. Karen reached the porch steps, stopped. Mother and daughter looked at each other across the worn wooden boards. "Mom," Karen's voice caught on the word. "You look..." "Old? No." Karen shook her head. "You look good. Really good. Better than you have in a long time." She stepped forward, wrapped her arms around Evelyn. The hug lasted longer than any they'd shared in years. Evelyn felt her daughter's shoulders shaking, felt the wetness against her neck. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry we stayed away so long." Evelyn pulled back, cupped her daughter's face in her hands, the way she used to when Karen was small and needed comforting. "You're here now. That's what matters." Michael was next. His hug was brief but solid, the way men hugged when they were trying not to cry. "Hey, Mom. Hey yourself. Sweetheart." He looked past her, into the house, and his eyes widened. "Is that?" Evelyn turned. Bella stood in the doorway. Sophie was already on the floor beside her, small hands buried in golden fur. The puppies tumbled around them both, yipping and climbing over each other. "That's Bella," Evelyn said. "And those are her babies." Michael stared for a long moment, then shook his head slowly. "Ruth told me the story, but seeing it..." He looked at Evelyn with something new in his eyes, something that might have been respect. "You're pretty amazing. You know that..." Evelyn's throat tightened. "I just did what needed doing." "Yeah," Michael smiled. And for a moment he looked exactly like his father. "That's what makes it amazing." The house filled with noise and movement and life. Pots clanging in the kitchen as Jennifer took over the stove. Children's voices rising and falling in the living room. The teenagers had finally abandoned their phones, drawn in by the puppies despite their best efforts to look bored. Evelyn moved through it all, touching shoulders, squeezing hands, letting the sounds wash over her like warm water. This was her house. These were her people. This was the life she'd thought was over. Karen found her in the kitchen, standing at the window, watching the snowfall. Mom, you okay? Evelyn nodded. Her eyes were wet, but she was smiling. I forgot what this felt like. Having people here. Having family. Karen's hand found hers. Squeezed. We should have come sooner. After Dad died. I thought giving you space was the right thing. I thought you needed time alone to grieve. I had plenty of time alone. I know. I'm sorry. They stood together, watching the snow drift past the window. Mom, can I ask you something? Anything? That dog, Bella. Karen paused. What made you go out there in the middle of the night? In a blizzard? Most people would have waited until morning, called someone, but you didn't. Why? Evelyn considered the question, thought about the sound that had woken her, the whimper that rose and fell like something that had forgotten how to hope. I heard something that needed me, she said finally, and I hadn't felt needed in a long time. Karen was quiet for a moment. I need you. Mom, Michael needs you. The kids need you. Her voice cracked. I know we haven't shown it, but we do. Evelyn turned, looked at her daughter. I know, sweetheart. I've always known. Dinner was beautiful chaos. 8 people around a table meant for 6. Elbows bumping as dishes passed. Conversations overlapping, tangling together, separating again. The smell of turkey and stuffing and cranberry sauce filling the warm air. Sophie insisted on sitting next to Evelyn, her chair pulled so close their arms touched. Grandma, can I name one of the puppies? They're going to new homes soon. Honey, other families are going to adopt them. Sophie's face fell. All of them. Evelyn looked at Scout, curled up in his usual spot beside the fireplace. The white patch over his eye caught the light from the Christmas tree. Not all of them. One is staying here with me. Which one? Evelyn reached down, lifted Scout into her lap. He yawned, tiny tongue curling. This one. His name is Scout. Sophie's eyes went round. Can I hold him? Gently. The puppy transferred from Evelyn's hands to Sophie's. The girl held him like he was made of glass, her face soft with wonder. He's so little. He'll get bigger. They always do. Sophie looked up at her. Grandma, can we come visit again when he's big? Evelyn's heart squeezed. You can come whenever you want, sweetheart. This door is always open. Sophie smiled, then turned her attention back to Scout, cooing softly. Karen caught Evelyn's eye across the table, nodded. Something had shifted between them. Something that had been broken was starting to mend. After dinner, the adults gathered in the living room while the children played with the puppies on the rug. The fire crackled. The Christmas tree lights twinkled. Outside, the snow fell soft and steady. Michael handed Evelyn a glass of cider. She took it, warming her hands on the mug. To Mom, he said, raising his own glass, for reminding us what family means. Karen raised hers. To Mom? David and Jennifer echoed the toast. Evelyn felt heat rise in her cheeks. You're making a fuss over nothing. It's not nothing. Mom? Karen set her glass down. What you did taking in that dog, standing up to that man, refusing to back down when everyone told you to let it go, that took courage. Real courage. It took stubbornness. Same thing. Sometimes. Evelyn looked at the fire. At Bella, lying contentedly beside the hearth while children's hands stroked her fur. She saved me too. You know? What do you mean? I was lost. Before I found her. Going through the motions, eating toast for supper and sleeping too much and waiting for something I couldn't name. She paused. Waiting to die. Maybe. The room went quiet. But then I heard her, out there in the snow, and something woke up inside me, Something I thought I'd buried with your father." She looked at Karen, at Michael. Purpose, that's what it was. A reason to get up in the morning. A reason to keep going. Karen's eyes glistened in the firelight. "Mom, I'm not saying this to make you feel guilty. I'm saying it because it's true. And because I want you to understand that Dog didn't just need me. I needed her just as much. Maybe more." Bella lifted her head. Those dark eyes found Evelyn's across the room. Her tail wagged. Once, later, after the children had fallen asleep on the couch in a pile of puppies and blankets, and the adults had drifted to the kitchen for coffee and pie, Evelyn slipped outside. The night was cold and clear. Stars scattered across the sky like sugar spilled on a dark tablecloth. The moon hung full and bright, casting silver light across the snow. She walked to the oak tree at the edge of the property. The branch where the rope had hung was bare now, clean. But she remembered. She would always remember. Footsteps crunched behind her. Mom, Karen, wrapped in a borrowed coat that was too big for her, picking her way through the snow. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just needed some air." Karen came to stand beside her. They looked at the tree together. "This is where you found her?" "Yes." "I can't imagine what that must have been like, seeing her like that." Evelyn shook her head slowly. "I hope you never have to." They stood in silence. The wind whispered through the bare branches. "Mom, I've been thinking. About what you said. About purpose." "Yes." Karen turned to face her. "I want to come visit more. Not just holidays, regular visits. Once a month. Maybe. The kids should know their grandmother. Really know her." Evelyn's throat tightened. "I'd like that. And maybe—" Karen hesitated. "Maybe you could come stay with us sometimes. In Chicago. See the city. Meet my friends. Get out of this house for a while." "You want me to visit? I want you to be part of our lives again. Mom, not just a voice on the phone, not just someone we check in on out of obligation." She took Evelyn's hands in her own. "I want my mother back." The tears came before Evelyn could stop them. She didn't try to hide them. Karen's arms wrapped around her, warm, strong. "I love you. Mom, I love you too, sweetheart. More than you'll ever know." They walked back to the house together, arms linked, breath fogging in the cold air. Inside, the fire still burned low. The children slept. Scout had climbed up onto the couch and was nestled against Sophie's chest, both of them breathing slow and deep. Bella raised her head when Evelyn entered. That tail wagged again. Evelyn sat down beside the fire. Karen joined her. "Merry Christmas, Mom. Merry Christmas, baby girl." The clock on the mantel struck midnight. The chimes rang through the quiet house, marking the end of one day and the beginning of another. Outside, the snow kept falling, soft, steady, covering everything in white. Evelyn closed her eyes. Let the warmth of the fire wash over her. Let the sounds of her family breathing, shifting, living fill the spaces that had been empty for so long. Bella's head settled onto her lap. That familiar weight, that perfect trust. She thought about the year behind her, the grief, the loneliness. The night she'd walked into a blizzard and found something she didn't know she was looking for. She thought about the year ahead, the visits, the puppies finding homes, the garden she'd plant in spring, the tomatoes Walter always loved. She thought about Eleanor Callahan, who died alone because no one was paying attention, and Frank Mitchell, driving toward Wisconsin and whatever second chance waited for him there. She thought about Walter, about the 47 years they'd shared, about the way he used to hold her hand while they watched the sunset from this very spot. "That's my Evie," she could hear him say, "still fighting, still loving, still here." She opened her eyes. The fire crackled, the snow fell, the house was full of people who loved her, and Evelyn Harper, 72 years old, sat in the glow of Christmas lights with a dog's head in her lap and a puppy named Scout sleeping at her feet. Not waiting anymore, not invisible, just here, just home. Some stories settle into us quietly, like snow falling on an empty field. This one carried weight, the kind that sits in the chest without asking permission. The ache of being unseen, the tender exhaustion of loving something when you're not sure you have anything left to give. Many of us know that feeling. The house that grows too large, the phone that rings with voices that feel far away even when they're close. The wondering, late at night, if anyone would notice the silence. Some of us have stood at that window, looking out at nothing, waiting for something we couldn't name. And perhaps you recognized something else in this story too, the way care can arrive without warning. The way purpose sometimes finds us in the cold, in the dark. When we've stopped looking for it, we don't always get the reunion we hoped for. We don't always find the words before it's too late. Some things stay unfinished. And that's all right. Not every question needs an answer. Not every ache needs to be explained. It's okay to let this rest now. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for listening.